this $600 IRS rule changes everything for a lot of us. Any of us that have ever used PayPal or Venmo, we're going to be likely impacted by this. So what's the rule? Well, it turns out when you use these payment platforms like Venmo, like PayPal, the platform itself has to send you a 1099 form, which alerts the IRS that you made income. And I'm doing air quotes with income. You'll see why in a second. Um, but let's say you go out to a restaurant with your friends and the lunch is $40. And so you Venmo your friend $20. Well, it used to not be a big deal because Venmo and platforms like that did not have to file a 1099 on you unless you made $20,000 or more on that platform. And I should say made as well, because in that case, did your friend make any money? I would argue no. You're just splitting the bill, which is how a lot of us use Venmo and PayPal. But this 1099K form, now these platforms have to send the IRS this form saying you've earned money and the burden's on you. You have to prove that you didn't earn money. If they paid out to you the lesser of either $600 or 200 transactions. And, you can easily hit 200 transactions a year on PayPal or Venmo with your friends. Now, what the IRS is trying to catch is the freelancers used to always have to report their income, right? We all have to report our income. For instance, I used to teach skiing the week between Christmas and the first of the year so that my whole family could have free season passes to one of the best ski resorts in the United States, actually. Um, and I was happy to do that. But in the course of teaching, I got paid an hourly salary and I also got paid tips. And it was on me to report those tips to the IRS each year. And, I don't want to have a headache with the IRS, and I know you don't. So I try to report everything that I can think of. Um, but the 1099s, what's happening now is if in the course of the year, either of those platforms receives $600 or more, they're going to issue a 1099. If you've had more than 200 transactions, even if it wasn't $600, they're going to issue a 1099. Now, it's important for all of us to know that the IRS has a transcript on us. All of these forms that they've received, all the 1099s, all the W-2 forms, everything like that. And you can actually request a copy of your transcript, because what you don't want to have happen is you don't want the IRS, let's say you bought a bicycle for $1,000, just to use a silly example. And you ride it, for half of the summer and you're like, this really isn't my thing. So you sell it to your friend for $650. Now you actually lost money on that bike. So I'm not an accountant, but my take is that's not taxable income. You lost money on that bike. But now, because your friend paid you $650 by Venmo, guess who has to prove that that's not income? You have to. So you have to keep files on everything. So this is a big deal. And normally, many of us don't know what the IRS transcripts are. But because of rules like this, I think it's helpful for all of us to reach out to the IRS and say, hey, I'd like to get a copy of my transcript. And typically by June, the end of June, the IRS has a full transcript on you for the previous year. So in 2025, in June, they'll have the full transcript for you in 2024. And you can just make sure that nothing is missing, that the IRS doesn't have a form that they have saying this is income. The 1099K that we're talking about here would be a good example of this. We show this income, but you didn't report it, because that can trigger an audit, which can then trigger taxes owed, and it can include penalties. And frankly, it's just a headache. So none of us want to do that. But again, it's on us to track that and to have the burden. And we have the burden, I should say, to prove that it wasn't revenue. So, having good records, and it's something that is really hard to go back and recreate it's easier to keep up with it in the moment, and none of us, I don't mind paying my taxes. I wish I didn't have to pay taxes, but I'm very grateful for everything the United States has offered me. And I know that, it's not cheap to run a country like the United States. And so I want to pay all the tax that I'm legally obligated to, but I don't want to have to pay more than that. So being able to track your receipts, being able to track your spending, being able to track your mileage, anything that you're deducting, it's one of those activities that is best done in the moment as opposed to putting it off and trying to recall it later. So there's all kinds of apps out there that you can look into to do it, but I really encourage you to start doing that on a regular basis. Another thing when it comes to taxes is it's not as expensive as people think to hire a professional to do your taxes. My father always told me when I was growing up, if the US tax system gets so complicated that you can't do your own taxes, it's time to vote everybody out. But the reality is taxes, as we get older, taxes get more complicated. So I finally bit the bullet about a decade ago and hired a professional accountant to do my taxes. And it saves me so many hours. It saves me so much frustration. This is not a push for any one accountant, but it is a push to talk about, maybe as you get older, maybe that's an area that you can buy back your time, which, I think is really important as we start to build our bank account balances. Think about, there's always ways to make a little more money, but there's never any way to make a little more time other than things like this where, I used to mow the lawn, and now I pay somebody to mow my lawn. When I was younger and my kids were at home, I wanted them to see dad out mowing the lawn. I thought that that was an important thing. Uh, but now that the kids are grown and out of the house, dad wants to have some extra free time. So I'm happy to pay somebody to mow my lawn. And doing your taxes is for many families a exercise in frustration. So think about using a tax advisor, a CPA, an enrolled agent to do your taxes. And you want somebody that's going to sign along with you as the preparer. And I chose to use, a little bit larger of a firm because if there ever was a mistake, it would have been a mistake of oversight. But I want somebody on my team in that corner with me. And I want you to have somebody in the corner with you as well. So think about the professionals in your life. Likewise, for a financial advisor, I think for a lot of folks, at least to get your asset allocation right, at least to get, do you have enough money to retire right? Those are big, big decisions. Another big, big decision is when you choose to retire. And it's why I made this video here, why waiting to 65 to retire might be a big mistake. I'll see you in that video. Thanks for watching this one. Bye-bye.